So, hey, fellow Earthlings, this is Earthling 6455463728. And in this video, I wanted to talk about how I discovered, or at least how I understood, why it seems like farmers use so many antibiotics when it comes to farm animals. You may or may not know that according to the last figure that I read, 80% of the antibiotics that are used on farms for farm animals. So we, as regular people, we use a tiny, well, to me it's a tiny amount, because I would have thought, okay, we have antibiotics and we're using most of them. But to find out that 4 times as many antibiotics are used on farms as are used by human beings, to me was like, what? That's crazy. That's kind of like finding out, as I did at some point, that most of the wood, the wood that's in trees, in every tree, that came from the air. It didn't come from the ground. The wood that you're looking at is from the air. Wood is, for want of a better word, carbohydrate, and the carbon dioxide comes out of the air, not from the ground. So I was like, my mind was blown. And to find out that, all of these antibiotics are just shoved down the throats of chickens and pigs and I guess horses even, and cows and whatever. Of course, people don't eat horses as much, but I was like, wow, that's crazy. And, I would see people say that, okay, we're trying to get farmers to cut down on antibiotics. And I was of the mind that, wow, these farmers, that's really awful, I can't believe that they would be using so many antibiotics. What's that about? Somebody needs to get them to stop. And I thought, okay, yeah, the farmers, maybe there's something wrong with them. Anyway, this story doesn't really have much to do with animals, but it has to do with plants. And I kind of extrapolated it from what I saw with plants that I was trying to grow, and I realized that it made sense for farmers as well. So anyway, I, from time to time, where I live, a tomato plant might just spring up from wherever it, maybe someone threw a tomato seed somewhere and boop, here it is. It's springing up and it's growing. So wherever it was, whatever corner of the yard it might be, I would, water it and try to get it to grow. Now this is over the course of many years, different tomato plants all over the place. So and in one instance I was thinking that if I water this plant and it grows, I'm going to get some tomatoes and some tomatoes. So I would water the plant and try to take care of it. I didn't want to use insecticides or anything. So eventually though, at some point, the plant would catch some kind of disease, like what I now realize are like leaf borer insects would go inside of the leaves and start killing it, and it would just die. The plants just kept dying. So I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll use this particular insecticide. And when I see the leaves are being attacked, so I would see the leaves being attacked and I would spray the plant, and I realized, okay, fine, it would kill the leaf borer insects and things could progress. But I realized that, wait a minute, a lot of times there would be flowers on the plant and they would just dry up and die. And here I am expecting the flowers to produce fruit, and they didn't. And we're talking about over the course of many years, different tomato plants that sprung up here, there, or wherever. So in one particular instance, there was a tomato plant. It grew up quite big. It was one that it was near to a fence, so I kept, tying the branches onto the fence so that it would be able to spread out as far as it wanted. And it grew to be quite big. And I think I got one tomato from that, and I was like, wow, that's cool. But all these other all these other flowers are just drying up. That's really strange. So I got frustrated, and I took the insecticide and I just started spraying the plant like regularly. And surprise, surprise, suddenly there were tomatoes that were forming and they were growing. And then at the end of it, I had like 20 tomatoes that I could point to and say, wow, look. And like a light bulb went off in my head, and I realized, wait a minute. There's something that the insecticide would have killed that I wasn't seeing, that was killing the flowers before they could produce any fruit. So here it was, I got one tomato as opposed to getting like 20, and I'm not even lying. Like 20 tomato fruit were formed, and I was able to get them when I sprayed without even seeing anything affecting the plant. And I thought about, I'd gone to, I guess you'd call it a fair, where it was like an agricultural fair. So I remember I went up to one particular booth, and they were describing all of the different diseases that a goat can get, or sheep, or whatever. And I was just going through this list, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many different things that a goat can get. And in retrospect, when I think about it, obviously an animal is going to get all these different diseases, because when you try to think of all the things that can go wrong with a human being, all the different diseases that we can get, I mean, just the symptoms of the flu, right? Flu symptoms can be caused by like 100 different microorganisms. And that's just flu-like symptoms. It's no wonder that when you go to the doctor for the flu, really the doctors are thinking, what do you want me to do? Because by the time they even perform the test to tell you which one of these microorganisms it was that's affecting you, you've gotten over it. So most of the time they just give you some, pain medicine, some pills or whatever it is to help your symptoms, and say, okay, bye. So in that way I realized, wait a minute, if this can happen with respect to the tomato flowers and shriveling and the insecticides killing whatever it was that I couldn't even see, then obviously, farmers probably are doing the same thing. They can't wait until they see a problem in order to give their animals antibiotics. Otherwise, they're going to be just chasing their tails, because there's so many things that a cow could have. There's so many different diseases that they can have. They probably even give the animals, if they could give them antivirals, they probably would as well. But there's so many different bacteria that could be affecting a cow that it doesn't make sense to wait until you see a problem before you try to do something. Because that's what I was doing with all these different tomato plants over all these different years, and it just wasn't working. So I realized that there's not much hope. We can't really hope, and we can't really put too much blame on farmers for what they're doing, because what they're doing makes sense. I mean, it's even when you see regular, plant-based, like wheat or cotton or whatever, you spray before you see what's being affected. You just spray because you know that something is going to come after your crop, so you go ahead and you spray. And it's the same thing for pigs or goats or cows or sheep or whatever. So, and I was just kind of shocked that I had absorbed and fallen for the narrative that farmers were being silly in giving these antibiotics to their animals. And I was sad to see that, whoa, there's so many things that I get wrong regularly about the way that the world works. And for whatever instance, every once in a while I might realize, okay, that was wrong. And then, this gets back to something that I had come across a while ago. It's called the half-life of knowledge, or whatever you might want to say, that in any given field, there is a particular half-life. When you go over that period, like if say the half-life of physics is 50 years, every time 50 years passes, half of the things that you know are going to be proven to be wrong. And it's the same for chemistry or biology or whatever it might be. So that's just weird. But anyway, guys, wish me lucks as usual. You can like or unlike. You can comment and or subscribe or share. I appreciate it, because I need a certain amount of subscribers to be able to monetize any of these videos. So I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Peace.